Accountability is an absolutely massive and useful tool that we can all use to get better results. So in our Recharge Ladies personal training group, we've all decided to admit to our kind of biggest challenge at the moment. And what most people are kind of coming up with is that they're struggling the most with making good food choices and getting their portion size right. And this is something personally that I've obviously worked on myself for years and years and years to tweak it and get it right. And obviously this is something that does come up on a regular basis with anyone that I work with, because it's one of the easiest things to tweak if we're really honest about it and if we're kind of motivated to make those changes. Okay, so I'm going to go through a few pointers of where you can get started with this. And I really want to applaud everybody that is stepping up to the next level of accountability, and hopefully you can take some of these things on board to help you in your accountability partnerships or groups that we're going to set up as we go along. So when it comes to portion size in particular, we need to be aware of what the composition of the food needs to look like on the plate to get the right balance of macronutrients and micronutrients across the plate and the day. So not just the one meal, but across the whole day. So if you haven't already done this, go back to my meal builder document, my nutrition guidelines files, and if you don't know where to find those, please get in touch with me. I've shared them various times over and over again, but you might not have been ready to read it at that point in time, so do come back to me if you want me to redirect you to those links, and I will get you onto that straight away. Okay, so go back to those files. They're simple to follow. They're guidelines to set you up in terms of what should go onto your plate, and how to manage that across the day and across the week to get better results. Okay, so if you're setting up your plate properly, and if you're getting that right consistently, then you should automatically start to see better results. And as an ongoing process, you want to use a trial and error method in terms of factoring in how your appetite and how your portions might need to change based on kind of the circumstances in your life. So things like whether you exercise that day, whether exercise increases or decreases your appetite, whether your portion is satisfying you kind of, actually the tummy feeling full, or whether you're getting these emotional cravings later on. So the more that you can pay attention and the more that you can try different things, you might decide that on a training day that you might up your portion slightly, a bit more protein, a bit more carbs, because you know that you've burnt more calories that day. But equally, you might find that exercise suppresses your appetite and that you actually like to eat slightly more on a rest day. So you need to look in more detail, pay more attention, and work out where you need to make those changes. We don't rarely have a uniform day to day. So we need to be prepared to look at each day and say, what are my needs on this day? And yes, of course, that takes more time, but that's what this next level is. This is you being more accountable and saying, I'm not happy with how things are going, or I'd like things to improve and I'd like to see better results and I'd like to understand more, and therefore I am prepared to spend more time and more energy on this, because the initial phase of changing anything will always feel a bit resistant. You'll be like, oh, do I really need to? I'm doing okay. And if the true answer is that you really want to make some changes, then you have to take the initial hit in terms of time, planning, energy, kind of using your brain to actually get into the nitty gritty of all this stuff. And I obviously can help you with that, but it needs to come from within you. I want you to come up with some ideas, and I'll bounce back with some of my own, and we'll do it together, and you'll do it in your accountability partnerships and groups to make sure that you all start to understand a bit better about the choices that you are making on an individual level, particularly meal to meal to meal and over the week to week basis, which obviously ultimately earns you your results. So the biggest thing that I know that I'm going to get some resistance from on this one is tracking it. Okay, there is no greater accountability than tracking your food. If you want to get some real data, some real information that I can actually give you proper feedback on, then download MyFitnessPal and start tracking your food. And one of my own personal things that I'm going to do for myself here, because I track my food daily anyway, I'm going to start to weigh my food again and just reset my kind of visual mechanism for how much food is a portion in terms of what I need for myself. So I've got into the habit of, for example, when I make my porridge in the morning, I'll just chuck a handful of nuts in, I'll chuck some cacao nibs in, and I'm not measuring that out, I'm just estimating what that is in the app. And for the first time this morning, and in a long time, I actually weighed out my nuts and my nibs, and I sort of visually thought, I've been putting a bit more than I thought into the bowl, and obviously then I've been under-reporting my calories and my nutrients for the day, because I've been eating more than I actually thought mentally. Okay, so if you're prepared to do this, if you're in the mental headspace to commit to this, to be properly accountable with your food, and ultimately to be honest with yourself, and I understand the hesitation behind tracking. Not only is it a little time consuming and a bit onerous, it's also, you cannot hide from the reality. If you are putting a triple portion on your plate, then it will reflect that in the numbers that your tracking shows up, and you cannot hide from that. So I use that basically as a way for myself to be accountable and honest with myself. Particularly being an ex-binge eater, I know that my appetite isn't always satiated by a normal portion, which it is biologically, but my emotional stomach is still kind of craving more. So I have to make sure that I'm actually extra accountable, and that's where I'm adding that extra layer in for myself with a bit of, just for the next week or so, just weighing some of my foods that I know that I've been a little bit lackadaisical with. Okay, and the final thing that I'm going to suggest, and that is really where these groups and partnerships will really come in into their strength, is that you share with other people what you're doing. Because again, like tracking, if you're having to share a photo of your meal, or if you're having to share the contents of your meal, you cannot hide from what is on your plate. If you're taking an honest picture and saying, this is what I'm having for dinner, what do you guys think? Is it too much? Is it too little? Are the choices right, do you think? And if you can add some context with it. So, for example, if you have just taken the relatively easy option of having like a frozen pizza for dinner, for example, just something that you can just chuck in and then eat fairly quickly. So, if you don't add context to that, the feedback that you're going to get from your peers and from me is going to be, well, come on, that a pizza doesn't really give you that many nutrients. It's probably a bit too much bread, a bit too much carbs, not a lot of protein, and there's, unless it's a veggie pizza, there's not going to be a great deal of vegetables going on there. So that would be the generic feedback that you'll get from that kind of choice. But if you add context to your choice when you post your picture, you can say, well, I had this frozen pizza, but I accounted for it. I was really looking forward to it. It's my treat for the week. I haven't had carbs for breakfast or lunch, and I've made sure I've had loads of salad, loads of veg at those first two meals. And I thought this is just my treat meal for the week. So I've accounted for it in my numbers. I've accounted for it in terms of my choices, and it's just what I'm having for dinner because A, again, I've chosen to, and B, I didn't have a lot of time. So if you can add context, you will probably find that the comments that you get in return won't be as potentially critical if it's something that isn't kind of on the healthier spectrum in terms of food choices. So, the last thing we want to achieve with this partnering or grouping is like a guilt mechanism or feeling too criticised. And because I want you to be honest. I want you to feel that you can honestly share what you're eating or what you intend to eat and get some fair criticism or fair critique or fair commentary, probably a better word than criticism, fair commentary in return, so that you think twice about your choices if you're not sure. If you are completely sure and if you can justify and if you've thought about it, then just share your thoughts, share your justification, share what your process of thinking was and how you've worked it out in terms of why that is the meal that you're eating right there. And hopefully your peers will come back and say, okay, that's cool. Because ultimately the last person that we have to be accountable to is ourselves, okay? You can use me for accountability, you can use your peers, your friends, your family, but at the end of the day, it's down to you, okay? It's down to you to say, I am going to reach for the next level of accountability, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to be honest and open, I'm going to share, and I'm going to be open myself up to feedback. Or you can step back and say, I don't really want to hear it, I don't really want to know. And if you're in that stage, that's okay, because you will get to a point where you are ready for this, okay? It might not be right now. Just because other people are ready for this accountability right now doesn't mean that it's your time on your personal journey, okay? So please don't feel like you're being cut out of the accountability group if you choose not to be in it. It just means that further down the line, when you're ready, you'll be paired with someone or partnered with someone or in a group with someone else who is ready at the time when you are ready as well, okay? So if you're ready for this accountability, I want you to post down below in the comments what you intend to do, 1 or 2 things that you intend to do to make yourself more accountable. And we're going to go through the recharge group later and put some partners and groups together for those people that do want to be involved in this grouping and this next level accountability to sort of supercharge the results that you're getting, okay? Fundamentally, this is meant to be a kind of educational exercise. It's for you to learn about yourself. It's for you to get an insight into other people. You'll get an insight into me and how I do things. I try to share a lot of myself with the group. I try to, give you as many examples from my own life as possible. But often peer level accountability can be a bit more helpful, because you may potentially see me as someone that doesn't quite understand the struggles that you're going through. No matter how hard I try, you might feel more comfortable sharing the honest truth with someone else that's going through exactly the same thing, okay? So if that is the case, then please do share as much as you feel comfortable with, and just know that sharing is cathartic. Being honest and being open, it really allows all the kind of worries, sometimes the shame that you feel and the kind of anxiety about food. If you can get it out, if you can tell someone, if you can share in a safe space, you will find that the choices consistently further down the line become easier, because you're no longer this anxious ball of kind of I don't know what to do. And when you get all stressed and anxious, the thing that you'll most likely do is go for the easiest option, the quickest option, or potentially punish yourself for being flighty and anxious, okay? So if you can try and look at this as a educational process where you'll be learning a lot more about yourself, learning something useful in terms of the actual food choice and the proportion of that choice within the whole meal concept, then we'll end this process further down the line. This may be weeks or months or years, hopefully with you being able to take that knowledge away with you and feel a lot more independent and empowered to make those better choices with a lot more knowledge and understanding under your belt, okay? Thank you for listening. It's been fab, hopefully. I think it's been fab. You can let me know your own thoughts in the comments down below. And yeah, we'll get on with the accountability. Let's get cracking and let's get those results rolling in.